Hello there and a very good morning and welcome to the Breakfast Rundown with me, Zulfick Farzan, on this Friday morning. Well, the International Monetary Fund has said that they are ready to work with the next government that will be selected by the people, and said Sri Lanka's next review will be after the presidential elections. Now, I attended the IMF press briefing last evening via online, and I raised this question from Julie Kozak, the spokesperson for the IMF. Now, this was what happened.
Several weeks ago, the private creditors reportedly submitted their proposal with regard to the debt restructuring parameters to the IMF on Sri Lanka's debt restructuring. Is there any update that we can get from the IMF with regard to that? And secondly, as my colleagues mentioned earlier, September 21st is the presidential election, and in the run-up to the presidential election, opposition factions are saying that the DSA with regard to the EFF program will be renegotiated or revisited. Is there any possibility to do that on the IMF's point of view, given that the next review is scheduled somewhere in mid-October? Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So with respect to the question on the debt, an IMF team visited Colombo earlier in August and issued a press release at that time. As mentioned in the press release, the execution of the domestic debt restructuring and finalizing the agreement with the Official Creditor Committee and China Exim Bank are major milestones. The staff assessed that the so-called joint working framework, and the staff has also provided an assessment of this framework to the Sri Lankan authorities. Furthermore, at the request of the Sri Lankan authorities, the IMF staff has shared this assessment with the financial advisors of the country's bondholders. So that is where our role has been on the debt. And I also just want to reemphasize that with respect to debt restructuring, the IMF does not take part in the negotiations, in the debt restructuring negotiations and discussions. Those negotiations are between the member country and its creditors, with the IMF making an overall assessment of debt sustainability. And I would also refer you to a press release issued by the Sri Lankan authorities, which contains further information. With respect to the other question on the DSA, I think my broad response is essentially the same as it was to some of the earlier questions, which first, with respect to the upcoming presidential elections, this is for the people of Sri Lanka to decide. From the IMF's position, what we see is a program that has made significant achievements, but that it is important to safeguard these achievements to enable the country to fully emerge from one of its worst crises. And as mentioned in a press release during the timing of the third review, the timing of the third review will be discussed with the government following the elections. So we will move forward with program discussions after the presidential elections take place, and a new government or the outcome based on the choice of the people. We will be ready to go with that.
Well, that was Julie Kozak, the spokesperson for the International Monetary Fund. Now, September 21st is the presidential election for Sri Lanka, where around 17 million eligible voters will exercise their franchise. Now, the Department of Post is also tasked with a certain responsibility with regard to the presidential election. Now, the Department of Post has said that the delivery of official polling cards for the presidential election will be completed by tomorrow, and these polling cards will be delivered to the households. Now, according to Senior Deputy Postmaster General Wickremesinghe, 80% of the official polling cards have already been distributed. Wickremesinghe assured that any individual who has not yet received their official polling card can verify their identity and collect the polling card from the nearest post office from the 18th to the 21st of this month. Now, at the same time, the Election Commission has announced that the official ballot papers for the upcoming presidential elections have successfully been forwarded to the respective districts. Now, these ballot papers are currently stored under stringent police protection in the vaults of the district secretariats, ensuring their security until the election. Now, the Commission has confirmed that the ballot papers will be issued to district electoral officers on the 20th of this month. That's one day ahead of the presidential election. Additionally, the Election Commission has completed the appointment process for the presidential election as well. Now, these include the positions of senior polling station officers. Now, these officers will be responsible for overseeing the polling stations during the presidential election, ensuring a smooth and orderly voting process. Now, in line with the presidential election, international election observers are also a part of the process. Now, the Election Commission has announced that international observers from 9 countries will be visiting Sri Lanka soon to monitor the electoral process. Now, RMA Elwatnaika is the chairman of the Election Commission, and he said that these observers are visiting Sri Lanka at the invitation of the Sri Lankan Election Commission. Now, they will be in Sri Lanka from the 18th of this month and will remain until the conclusion of the presidential election. Now, the representatives include delegations from SAARC countries and Russia. Now, at the same time, election monitors and observers from the European Union and the Commonwealth are already in Sri Lanka to monitor the election process. Now, once the election is concluded, these election observers will prepare a comprehensive report and submit it to the National Election Commission. Now, as we head to the presidential elections on the 21st of September, the election campaign trail is heating up with various comments being made by individual candidates. Now, independent presidential candidate and President Ranil Wickremesinghe has addressed the significant changes Sri Lanka had to experience following the Argalaya that took place 2 years ago. He highlighted that both the collapse in the political and economic mechanisms during that period and the numerous challenges that the country had to face. Now, Wickremesinghe acknowledged the inconveniences that were caused to the people following the Argalaya and stressed the need to protect the country's stability. He mentioned that he had to take several measures, some of which were criticized for allegedly curtailing civic freedoms. However, he emphasized that his actions were balanced within the constitutional principles and aimed at maintaining stability. Now, Wickremesinghe asserted that these elements have been successfully established, ensuring the country's stability and the protection of the citizens' rights. Now, at the same time, at the Doctors for a Healthy Future Forum, doctors have voiced concerns about restoring their professional status to be on par with the judiciary with financial benefits to follow economic recovery. Now, President Wickremesinghe has assured that these matters are under consideration, noting that the key decision is whether to introduce gradual reforms or overhaul the structure immediately.
The status is something we are going into, but I thought monetary issues are also tied up with status. So that's another issue that comes up. There's also claims by some of the other branches also. So we have become one full unified system, unlike other countries where doctors, engineers were treated and others were all treated separately. We brought the whole government service together. This is the issue that we have. But certainly the matters are receiving attention, I would say. Question is whether you put gradual reforms or you change the structure immediately, but there can be an outcry on that. So we'll have to have some rounds of discussions with all of you. But there have also been other claims by others, I must say.
Well, another presidential candidate is Anura Kumara Dissanayake. Anura Kumara Dissanayake is contesting from the National People's Power, or the Jatika Janabalavegya. Now, on his campaign trail, Dissanayake has emphasized the need for principled politics and collective efforts to rebuild the country. He has criticized the current political landscape and called for significant reforms in the parliamentary system. Dissanayake highlighted the importance of ending policy-less politics and stopping the sale of political influence. He expressed confidence that following their victory, more than 150 parliamentarians who have engaged in disruptive and unethical behavior would possibly not return to the House of Legislature. He questioned whether individuals who have brought chili powder, knives and engaged in violent acts should be allowed to continue to serve as MPs. He also criticized those who have been found guilty in court, sentenced to severe punishments or involved in financial scandals such as the central bank treasury bond scam, stating that they should not be part of the parliament. Naika also promised to clean up the parliament and send an honest and uncorrupt group of representatives from the National People's Power. Now, he also emphasized that his vision for a reformed cabinet, limiting to a number of 25 members, and proposed several measures to reduce government expenses and privileges. Now, these measures include cancelling the pensions for MPs, vehicle permits, government housing for ministers, and the payment of utility bills for the ministers' residences. Now, he is also proposing to cancel the president's pension and reducing the number of government vehicles allocated for the ministers and the presidents. Now, another presidential candidate is Sajid Premadasa. Now, he is the leader of the opposition and also the leader of the Samagi Jana Balawegya. Now, Sajid Premadasa has said that based on India's success education system and creating a high middle income class, he wants to replicate this success story in the Colombo district as well. Now, he envisions transforming the district into a hub of knowledge, producing intellectuals and modernizing free education. Now, Sajid Premadasa stressed on the importance to improve or implement English language centered education and introduce IT and computer science from grades 1 to 13. Now, he has acknowledged the challenges faced during these transformations, even citing the recent conflict situation that arose within the Sri Jayawardhanapura University. Now, despite opposition, Premadasa has affirmed his commitment to these educational reforms, which he believes are crucial for the 4.1 million children in Sri Lanka. Now, today is Friday, and starting today or late this evening will be the long weekend, and many of you would have already made plans to travel out of Colombo or overseas even. Now, for those who are travelling out of Colombo, Sri Lankan transportation authorities have made the necessary arrangements to facilitate the movement of people from Colombo to other areas. Now, transportation authorities have made special arrangements to ensure that people travelling to their villages for the upcoming long weekend holiday have access to adequate transportation services. Now, the Sri Lanka Transport Board has confirmed that approximately 60 additional buses will be deployed into operation starting today. Now, at the same time, the National Transportation Commission has also planned to operate extra buses without a fixed schedule so that people can access the transportation services at any time. Now, these additional buses aim to provide convenience and allocate an efficient transportation services to the people who are traveling outside of Colombo to their respective villages and hometowns. Now, Sri Lanka's Railway Department has also announced that a special train will run from Badulla to Colombo as well during this period. Now, at the same time this morning, Colombo and many of its suburbs also experienced a heavy rainfall. So that means you better take your raincoats out and your umbrellas out before heading out of home today. And until I meet you again next Monday, take care and stay safe. This is the Breakfast Rundown.